Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Huddle Postgame Huddle postgame show here as we just finished watching Ohio State defeat Wisconsin 52-21. I am Tony Gerdeman here with Justin Whitlatch. See there, one of our X's and O's gurus. Justin, how's it going?
Good. Much better after tonight's game, that's for sure.
I came into this game wondering what Wisconsin's defense how they would handle the Ohio State attack. How many guys would they put in the box? And we saw, I think, the Ohio State offense, the running game, kind of outnumber what Wisconsin was doing. Wisconsin didn't really go too heavy too often. What did you see from that Ohio State running game that allowed them to go for the 258 yards they did tonight?
So I talked with Ross a little bit tonight, and Wisconsin, they like to use creeper and simulated pressures. So that's rushing four, but then dropping a front like a defensive lineman, and then bring out a linebacker, but you're still rushing four. It does look like a light box, but it gets guys out of position. So I thought tonight Wisconsin was really out of position during a lot of the running game tonight, and I think they played some pretty bad ball defensively. They were always out of position. They were in some really bad calls at times, and I think it's because their defense coordinator likes to be in a lot of simulated pressures or creeper pressures, and it gets kids out of positions if offensively you get the right call. And I thought Day had a really good night tonight. I think it's one of his better called games he's had in a long time. I think it's taken Day some time. Like if you think back to last year, it took Day like a quarter or a quarter and a half to really get in the flow of a game. And I thought right off the bat tonight he was right in the zone. And I think a lot of that had to do with Wisconsin was in kind of a light box, but they were also out of position a ton. And that's kind of on the defensive coordinator. But I do think they were undersized in the box as well. And I think Ohio State took advantage of that tonight too. Yeah,
because even their two outside linebackers top out at like 230 pounds and
right.
matched up against Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones. Like, even if they were outnumbered and outsized, and yet they have five guys in the secondary running around patrolling, and guys are still running open in that first 15 20 minutes of that game.
Right.
As you said, Ryan Day, this was, I think, the best play calling I've seen from the first maybe 20 minutes of the game. He was, as I tweeted, that it seemed like somebody sent out a fake game plan and Wisconsin bought it, and Ohio State and Ryan Day he was treating them like a yo-yo out there.
Right, and the first couple series, Wisconsin was just in a base cover three. They would bring some like simulated pressures and some creeper pressures, which again, you're only rushing four, so you're still okay in the secondary. You still have all the defenders you need in the secondary. But the thing Wisconsin didn't do is they were not rerouting the crossers that Ohio State was running in that first two drives, and that's really what killed them. Their safety didn't get any help from reroutes, so he's not able to adjust on the fly just because guys are so wide open and you have space. And if you're going to give Ohio State receivers space, you're screwed. I don't care who you are. If you're going to give any of those guys space, even their tight end tonight, Stover, if you give any of those guys space, you're screwed. And if you're not going to reroute guys, that's going to be good for the offense because you're not throwing off timing. And if you're rerouting guys, you're throwing off the timing. That throws off Stroud getting to his progression. And I thought Day did a really good job those first two drives to take advantage of that and versus their cover three that they ran.
Yeah, and Stroud had time to throw in that first half, and he took advantage of it. Started out 8 for 8. At one point after that, was like 5 for his next 12. He kind of came back to earth a little bit, but finished strong. He was 17 of 27 for 281 yards with 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. If you can hear that over my shoulder, that is the Ohio State post game.
And this time
we will go to that once Ryan Day gets out there, or CJ Stroud. We'll take you guys to that post game, and we may even get Paul Chryst, Wisconsin head coach, at some point soon here. And if that happens, we'll go there as well. As you can see, the post game at Ohio State, people milling about, and they're getting their sound checks in right now. So that's what's going on there. You're not missing anything just yet. So this receiver core for Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka was 6 for 118. Julian Fleming, 4 for 67. Cade Stover, 4 for 51. Marvin Harrison, just 3 for 45. But I don't want to say they didn't look like they weren't missing Jackson Smith and Jigba, but they sure stepped up without him.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's huge in terms of depth. I know somebody asked me pregame, like, would you rather have Wisconsin or Ohio State injuries? And obviously, with the depth that they have at that position, I'll take Ohio State injuries any day. Hopefully, those guys get healthy enough quickly, but they've got enough weapons. If JSN's going to be out, that they can take advantage, especially in the running game. I thought both backs had a great night tonight. I think Williams is really seeing zone well, and I think Henderson is starting to. I think he struggled a little bit tonight, and I think in the past couple of weeks of really seeing zone and being able to hit it the right way. Like if you watch Williams, he either will hit it front side, or if he has to bend it back, he will. And I don't think Henderson does that enough. So I hope to see some improvement there with Henderson. You see a lot of 3 to 4 yard gains, and when you see Williams run the ball, he's always going to make the first guy miss. So he stretches it to about 8 to 9 yards, and I think he sees zone a little bit better. And if you watch tonight, they ran some counter again, like they have in the past, and I think that's more Henderson. I think he's more of a gap scheme back. So I think down the stretch, I hope to see some of that mixed in. But yeah, they've got so many weapons; it's so hard to stop.
Is it a patience thing with the zone? You know, you're waiting for that to set up, whereas Mayan seems to do better with it. Is this just a patience thing with Travion where he just has to continue to work at it? Because talking to Luke Whippler before the season, he said that Travion Henderson has gotten more patient and he is seeing things better. Yeah. But like Mayan Williams, I think is just different than everybody else in terms of what he does.
And in high school, Williams was more of a zone back. So he's been running this kind of system for a long time. I don't know what Henderson ran in high school, but I think where he's struggling is obviously not the capability thing. It's where his eyes need to be. So like when you run zone or mid zone, what they run, you're reading like a 3 tech to the call side. And if he's going out, I'm going in. If he's going in, I'm going out. And I think that's kind of where Henderson is struggling a little bit. Like you'll see the crease backside start to open and he's still hitting it front side. And that's where Williams is really, really good as he's hitting it front side. And the 3 tech's out, he bends it back, and he sees the opening and where he needs to go. There's a couple times tonight, and you'll probably see on film later where I think it was midway through the second, Henderson had the 3 tech went inside and had a hole where the 5 technique was kicked out. There was a hole front side, and for some reason he cut it back right into the teeth of the D. So I think it takes a lot of reps, it takes a lot of patience, like you talked about, but hopefully moving forward they can just get better with him at it.
Yeah, Mayan Williams, 11 carries, didn't do much past at one point in the third quarter, and then they just stuck with Travion. I wonder how much of that is just to actually continue to get him work. And
I think so.
Because I think that works out well. He was 21 for 121 yards, long of 16. Mayan Williams, 11 for 101, long of 25. The average, those guys are averaging like 7 yards a carry with no big hits. And to me, that's a great job by the offensive line as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's like Braylon Allen has a 75-yarder to pad his stats, whereas he was contained for all of the games until the fourth quarter when Ohio State was like, feel free to run the clock. And I was really impressed that Ohio State was able to run the ball. I want to talk about the defense before we get to Paul Christ or anybody like that. You see there's some tackle numbers there for you. Tommy Eichenberg leading with 14, another really good game. I think everybody expected him to have a lot of tackles in this one, and he did not disappoint. What did you think about the way the front four for Ohio State held up? I was interested to see if they would stick with the nickel the entire time. I think they did, but that front four allowed them to do it, and then Wisconsin was never too big for them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with Wisconsin got on such a slow start, and when that happens, defenses usually start to pick up a little bit of confidence, and you could tell those first 3 or 4 drives they were playing with high confidence. I thought the D-line obviously did their job. Obviously, they need to – they're more of a pinch defense where they want to stuff front 5 and force the ball to the free running linebackers. That's why Tommy's having such a great year. Is the front 4 is doing their job to get the ball to the linebackers, and I think they did a really good job of that tonight. I know Wisconsin was down 2 tackles, and obviously that's going to play into a factor here. But I thought the front 4 did an unbelievable job tonight of forcing the ball to the linebacker, especially versus Wisconsin's gap scheme. Again, that front 4 they were dominant tonight. If they can continue that through the year, and the scheme that they saw tonight is somewhat of what Michigan's going to do. Michigan's going to be a huge gap team at the end of the year. So it's a good prequel to what they're going to see. So I thought they did an unbelievable job tonight.
Yeah, and again, if you hear the loudspeaker over me, that's OSU sound testing. Now let's get ready to go to the Wisconsin postgame. They're doing some sound testing there, so we'll see what's going on. Wisconsin is sound testing. So the thing that you're hearing over us right now is the OSU postgame that is fed into the press box, as you see there. Sound guy Keith at the podium giving all of the mic checks, the 1, 2, 3s, and so that's what you're hearing. And just so you're aware, but this Ohio State defense that we got to watch without Denzel Burke, without Cam Brown down their top 2 corners, I thought. I don't think Graham Mertz was able to take advantage of Ohio State's shortage at corner. They tried a couple times, and guys were getting – J.K. Johnson got beat a couple times. Jerry Brown got beat a couple times, but Wisconsin wasn't really able to take advantage of that.
Right, and that's this offense isn't like – they're not going to be able – the bad thing is they're not going to be able to take advantage of a defense that's depleted like that, especially in the secondary. That's just not their game. Their game is to play it in a phone booth, and if they can't beat you in the phone booth, you're going to struggle. And that's Wisconsin this year. They're not winning in the box. And if you're not going in the box and that's what you built your program on, you're going to have long nights just like tonight. So
I've seen his name somewhere.
If this were a different team, maybe like, I don't know, Michigan or anybody that can throw the ball well, I think they'll be able to take advantage of this game probably within a couple possessions. But it's just a team that can't take advantage of it.
Yeah. They don't have the skill at receiver to do that. Graham Mertz, 11 of 20 for 94 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Braylon Allen, the outstanding running back for Wisconsin, finished with 23 carries for 165 yards with a touchdown, a 75-yarder at the end, whatever. And then even they had a 7.5-minute drive before that where the game is well over. You don't like to see it, but I don't think it's all that much of a concern. Jim Knowles tries to keep things under 5 big plays and under.
Right.
They had the 75-yarder, the 26-yard reception. I think they handled the big plays pretty well for Wisconsin that doesn't really have big plays.
Right. And I agree. I can't remember who put this on social media, but last year I felt like when you could see a big play happening, Ohio State wasn't able to stop it. They weren't able to take the correct angle and make a play. This year, it's a huge difference. Like when you see that there could potentially be a big play, we're able to be there. We're able to tackle in space. And I think that's the biggest difference for me watching defensively, which I like to focus more on the offensive side of the ball. But that's been the biggest difference this year. And I think that's going to play a huge difference throughout the year.
Tommy Eichenberg made a play at one point, like a flare pass out into the flats, where he was basically the only line of defense, and he made the tackle, got him by the ankles. That's something that would have been a touchdown the last 2 years for sure.
Right, and defensively, if you can't tackle, I know it's so I don't know, rec ball league-ish, but if you can't tackle, you can't play defense, and that was such a big struggle last year. But just able to put guys on the ground. If you can run the ball and if you can make tackles, you're going to be pretty damn good defense. And I think Knowles has definitely improved in that area. That's for sure.
Yeah, overall, 3 tackles for loss for the Buckeyes, 2 of them by Tommy Eichenberg. Jack Sawyer got a sack in there as well. But I don't think you would necessarily expect a whole bunch of tackles for loss against Wisconsin, which is so heavy and able to get at least back to the line of scrimmage. But overall, I think, like you said, the defense held up pretty well. You see there the tackle numbers again. Tanner McAllister, this is a game that I think early in the season and before the season, we all counted him out, or not we all. I won't speak for everybody, but you don't know. Weren't sure how much the nickel would play in this game back then. But as we saw the Notre Dame game, it was clear that Jim Knowles wanted Tanner McAllister to be out there to prove to, I think, everybody that was questioning, how do you do this against Wisconsin? And he's like, that's how I do it against Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, and I thought he made a big play. I think it was towards the end of the half when they were running cover 2 and McAllister was running. I think he had a deep half there and ran, I think, to the front corner of the end zone. I thought he had a great night. This was his breakout night. And they were pretty, just because of the injuries, defensively, they were pretty base. Like, obviously, we saw some 3-high looks, but they were more in their 4-2-5, like they like to been in. Their will linebackers, like a safety, whatever. But they were more, it was more of a 4-2-5. It was pretty base. They didn't have to get very exotic. I know on third downs, they ran a couple of 6-man pressures with some cover zero behind it. But Knowles was pretty base tonight just because he didn't have to be exotic.
All right, let's go to Paul Christ there in the Wisconsin postgame.
We'll start with some opening comments from Coach, and then we can take questions.
First of all, credit to Ohio State. It's a really good football team, and I think a lot of respect for Ryan and what they do. And you know, we got beat, and you know, we didn't get off to a good start. And you know, take the first drive down, and then you know, we've got the Graham and Jim were just off. You know, and I thought it was an opportunity for us to make a play and the pick and give them bad field position, and you know, there's enough points in that game where we didn't respond on the field the way we had to, and there are times when it was hard getting things going offensively, and then we had a couple penalties that set us back, and a couple opportunities to make some plays, and we didn't, you know. And, that part we got to be better. You know, to give yourself a chance, you gotta to win games. You got to play good football. And you know, the one thing I did appreciate was that the guys kept playing, and they kept playing with each other. And that part we got to carry forward. You know, it's where we're at right now. We get an opportunity to bounce back, and got to bounce back together. And that part, you know, I appreciate the guys in that regard. We can go next week and get a chance to get back at it.
Paul, I'm just curious what you told your players, because it is just one game and it's not a division game, but I mean, that's not the type of football that you expect, I guess, in any phase. So what do you tell them after something like this?
Well, I mean, you can't hide from what happened, right? And you got to own it, right? And then you also got to own your response, you know, and that's, I don't think there's anyone that doesn't own that. And like I said, I feel good with this group about the response. Now we got to go do it, you know, but it's, you can't hide from it. That's what's great about this game. I mean, you know, there is no hiding in that. And you got to play, the game, play each game. But I do know it's a team sport. You got to be together, and that part I do feel.
All right, I think we're going to head over to Right Day right now.
From the jump, the skull session, the walk, beginning of
all the way to the end. You know, there was a lot of people hung around at the end of that game, and we don't take that for granted. So really appreciate Buckeye Nation and all the people who were here today.
Okay, we'll open up over here on the left, over on the right. Cam Teague Robinson from The Athletic.
Ryan, just on the corners, I know you're really depleted there.
Yeah.
Just your thoughts on the young guys who played, and then also kind of touch on the injuries of Denzel and Cam.
Yeah. Again, you know, we're not expecting those to be long-term things, but not having those guys in there and their experience, you know, was a concern going into the game. But Jair and JK have been practicing. They practiced really hard all spring. They practiced all preseason. They've been out there, and you know, we told them right before the game that everybody in the team believes in them, and we do. And they have no fear, and they went out there and played, and they did a really good job. I mean, I don't know what the film's going to show, but I know they competed, and I thought Tim Walton did a really good job getting them ready. And I'm proud of those guys to be able to win a conference game with them in there. Both really, I guess that's their first start each.
Over to the left, Lori Schmidt, Columbus Dispatch.
Coach, what's the key to getting two running backs going the way you had them going tonight?
Well, I think it's just the mentality of we know how long of a season this is going to be. And when you have two guys that you can go back and forth, who are unselfish, who understand what it means to be a team, that's the key. You know, if it starts to become like, what are my carries, what are my touch, what are my runs, then it doesn't work. But Travion and Mayan both have been excellent. Travion's energy before the game was off the chart. You could just feel it. I mean, I felt it in warmups. I felt it in the locker room. I felt it coming out of the locker room. And then he ran that way. He just ran hard. He ran physical. He ran with energy. And so did Mayan. Mayan ran hard. So I think we got something good going in that room. And you saw Dallin even run at the end. I thought he was running well. But hats off to the offensive line and the tight ends. I thought they really moved the line of scrimmage today against a good defense.
Over to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
When you're talking about being balanced offensively, is that about as close to perfection as you can get as far as being balanced goes on offense?
Yeah. I mean, I thought that the balance was solid. We're a no huddle team, in Wisconsin huddles a lot. So for us to kind of control the time of possession the way that we did, and I think we were up 21 points at one point. I think we had a 6 or 7 minute drive and we kicked a field goal, but it turned into a 4-possession game and we ate up a lot of clock in that drive. And I felt like that was a really good drive for us, even though maybe over the years, we expect to score touchdowns at a faster clip. But when you're in these types of games, you have to think that through. And I thought that was good, but I thought that the tempo and the mix of run and pass today is what we're looking for. Yes.
Over to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you got pretty animated after the defensive holding call. You were riding the official pretty good. How much of that is being upset in the moment, and how much is having the back of your defense wanting to support them?
Yeah, I usually don't talk about that stuff after the game, but I obviously didn't like what I saw, and I felt like that was a big play, but I wanted Jair to know that, like, I do have your back. Like, now if it was, egregious, okay, move on. But I want to defend him in that moment. This is a young kid out there in a big stage for the first time. And, I hope he felt like, his head coach was backing him up in that moment, because I think it mattered. And I believe what I was fighting for.
Over to the right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1 The Fan.
Ryan, I guess it's a product of how high the standard is that CJ set here, but it didn't feel like he had his best stuff tonight. Is that now what he can do on a off night?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was really good, in a lot of spots. That's a very good defense, and to throw 5 touchdowns, I mean, he was really good, and we had more out there. Right? The protection broke down on 2 plays in particular that would have been huge plays if we could have executed them better. But I thought the touchdown pass to Emeka was off the charts. I thought some of the other balls were really well done. It's my fault at the end of the half. I'm going to take that. We're up. I think it was 4 scores at that point with 45 seconds to go on our inside of our own, 25. Should have just ran it 3 times, listened to the boos running off the field and moved on, but I didn't. I threw the ball. We got a pick, and then the defense did a great job in sudden change getting a stop right there. And so that's on me. And a couple calls I could have done a better job with. I thought he played good. I thought his energy was good, and throw 5 touchdown passes against Wisconsin. That's a hell of a night.
Deep left, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, you guys came out first drive, hit 3 chunk plays in the pass game. Seemed like you had them spread out, and then ran it after that. It felt like you were able to make them defend sideline to sideline, and then find running gaps just beyond the balance the way you guys did it. What did you think of it?
That's what we're looking for, what you just said, and that's easier said than done, that you want to be able to do that. And when they feel like you're throwing it, then you start running it. When they feel like maybe you're running it, you spread them out a little bit and you try to get that going. And some nights it works and you get into a rhythm. Some nights it doesn't. Tonight I felt like we did get in the rhythm.
Clay Hall, WSYX.
Ryan, you've preached toughness and fight all off season. To handle 2 physical teams like Notre Dame and Wisconsin, to remove all doubt in the first quarter, push them around, dictate the tempo. Do you think you've buried that?
I think we've shown what we can do. Now, whether we do it every week, that's on us. But I think you can see what this team's made of. And I think we've shown that in first 4 games, what we can do, what we're capable of. The big challenge, as we all know in college football, is you have to bring it every week. And that's the competitive stamina we've been talking about. Every single week, you got to bring it. So as good as this feels, and as much as we want to celebrate this, we can't spend too much time patting ourselves on the back after this thing, which is hard because this is one heck of a win for us. I mean, to play like we did tonight, that was a lot of work. And I'm very, very proud of our team. I'm proud of our players. Proud of the way the defense came in, some of the way the guys stepped up. I mean, there's a lot of good to go around in this game. But the tough thing is, you don't have too much time to talk about that. You got to be on to the next team. And but we'll try to enjoy this the best we can tonight and a little bit tomorrow.
Far left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, one more about the running backs. You guys have tried in the past to have kind of two running backs share the load like that, whether it was 2018 with J.K. and Mike or Trey and Master in 2020.
Yep.
Why do you think with these two guys make it? Why is it working out so well?
I don't know. I mean, I think that I think our offensive line is doing a good job. I think our tight ends are doing a good job. I think we have the right mix right now. And their approach has been excellent. But I think it's probably a combination of them and the offensive line and the tight ends and our running back. I mean, our wide receivers. Our wide receivers are doing a very, very good job. I mean, they're making plays down the field, but they're also blocking and being physical on the perimeter. And I mean, you could see the physical play of Julian Fleming today. I mean, you see the shot Emeka took on that crossing route. I mean, that's tough play. And then he comes back and gets that touchdown pass. So I think you're seeing a physicality across the board. It isn't just up front. It's everybody.
Time for just a few more. Over to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
A couple quick ones. Could you update Jackson Smith and Jigba's status? And also the job that you did on Braylon Allen, he had the long run at the end, which skewed the stats, but what kind of job you think you did?
Yeah, I felt like our guys did a great job of gang tackling. There was a couple things that maybe could have squared it out, but we had extra guys come to the party and get him down. You don't have to look to see how many yards after contact he made, but I felt like we did a decent job of getting him on the ground. But he's a big, strong, physical back. And, boy, I mean, you can even feel late in the game where, if you get into a close game, they're going to wear you down. And he's like that. So overall, and we decided to take out some of our starters in that moment. And then he hit that long run. So we got to figure out why that happened. But that was on me. I know, Jim would rather have had his starters in there and stop them right there. But I made that call. So I wanted to keep our guys out of the game. We have a couple of guys who've been banged up, so made that call, and is what it is.
Over to the left, Patrick.
With Jackson, we decided to kind of shut him down for this game. We're going to hope we'll kind of get him going on Tuesday, and hopefully we make some progress and get to see him play next week.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, we saw what Travion could do last year, but when did you know Mayan could be that complementary, that number two back, however you want to call it, to Travion, that you could have two guys?
I mean, last year we saw it, we've seen it, but in the preseason is when I really started to see just an acceleration of his skill level and his practice habits and his toughness, and just the way he was hitting the holes. I thought he had one of the best preseasons on offense, and now you're starting to see it. But Mayan, even you think back that freshman year, he had, in that Clemson game, he shows up and makes some plays. So Mayan's been making plays since he's been here, and he's strong and he's powerful. He's built low to the ground. He's a changeup from Trey. They have different styles, but the great thing about them is, man, they're pulling for each other, and they know that there's carries to go around. And their attitudes have been excellent. Now you're seeing their production show up.
Final two questions for Coach over here to the right, Tim May. On 3.com.
Yeah, Tim May, whatever. Do all of Cade Stover's catches go to the tight end category? Because obviously you split him out big time tonight. That was a big change-up. It didn't look like they were ready for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but what just led you to do that? And were you surprised how effective it was? And number two, were you a little worried about him when he went little tea kettle there that got hit?
Yeah, I was concerned. That was a tough hit. He's a tough player, and I'm proud of what Cade is becoming for this offense. He deserves everything he's getting. He's earning it all. He is a weapon for us in the pass game, as you can see. He's strong, he's powerful, but he's also getting after people in the run game, does a good job in protection. And he can do that. You can see that he can split out. He can come back into the backfield. He can line up as a tight end. He gets big in some of the bigger personnels. And anytime you have somebody that can do that, that's what the NFL is looking for, right? That's what we're all looking for, those versatile players that can do multiple things. And he's showing he can do that, and he's become a weapon for us.
What did Wisconsin show you that would make that so effective?
No, I mean, we're constantly trying to find ways. We tried to do it last week, just the whole run pass conflict. Yeah.
And final question, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
You mentioned other guys stepping up behind
Jair and JK tonight. Where did Tanner McAllister fit into that, and kind of the way he was maybe setting a tone defensively?
Yeah, he missed last week, and it was good to have him back in there. And then he had the pick early on in the game, and that was a huge deal. And then we were able to capitalize and go up 14-0. So his maturity, and he's played a lot of football. Not here, but he's played a lot of football. So that helps. It's a little bit of confidence when he's out there, especially when you have some young guys back there. And I talked to Ronnie Hickman early in the game just about how you got to help with these guys. You got to be poised back there, and you got to show them that calm that they need. And he was there for them. And I thought those guys really helped, especially with the younger players.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, folks, we're going to bring in CJ Stroud at the front podium.
Clear them off. Check out CJ Stroud now here. We'll take the podium. Now they're going to bring in other guys behind CJ Stroud, and we're going to go from place to place and start out with CJ Stroud, who should be heading to the podium here any second now.
I want the four of you guys to go to the back. There's 4 tables.
And right now, they just got players milling about at the door. They're waiting to, as you can see, the other feed there that Kevin has. Here's CJ Stroud.
Louisa, you want to just hand it to anyone? Great. We'll open it up for CJ. We got Cameron Teague Robinson, the Athletic. Over here to the right, CJ.
CJ, that first half, it just looked like you were able to distribute the ball all over the field to whether it was Cade, Emeka, Julian, Marvin. Just what's that like as a quarterback when wherever you look, you have somebody who's likely going to be open and is going to bring down the ball for you?
Right. First and foremost, I want to give all glory and praise to God. Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, just be able to be at this school, this great university, play with these great teammates. But like you said, I think in the first half we distributed the ball pretty well. Had some good momentum coming out quick. That's something that we definitely want to do. And I think we built that chemistry with Cade, Emeka, and Marvin, and really everybody who touched the ball did a great job. But we built that chemistry in the offseason. So be able to do that. And then we even had some adversity in the first half too, kind of slowing down a little bit. Should have scored on the second to last drive, maybe even the last drive. But at the end of the day, I think that we bounced back from that, and it's good to get some of that early on in conference play so we can have that feeling of coming back even with adversity. So
over to the left, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
CJ, what's it like to have 2 running backs that can put up numbers the way that Mayan and Trey have? And how does, if any way, does that change when one's in the game for you than the other?
Right. Both of them have been great. Not only just running the ball, but pass protection as well. So they spent a lot of time on that. But at the same time, as y'all can tell, they're towing the rock really well. But it starts up front. I always preach to my alignment, y'all the best players on this team. We don't move if y'all don't move, or we're not great if y'all aren't great. So I definitely think that they take that to heart every week. And this is a big time challenge for us, knowing that Wisconsin was big and physical, and they wanted to. They said we couldn't run the ball, whatever the case may be, or they were going to stop the run, whatever the case may be. And they were a good team, but I feel like that was a challenge to us, and we wanted to step up to that. So mine and Trey were great, but I definitely think it starts with the O-line and tight ends blocking the front. Even the receivers did a great job blocking today.
Over to the right, CJ, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1 The Fan.
CJ, I could tell you weren't thrilled with my question. You might have missed my sarcasm that your standard is so high that even if you miss a couple of throws, that it seems like that's your off night. When you leave, will you think about the 5 touchdowns or couple more that you maybe could have hit?
A little bit of both. Working these plays, we work them so hard that you have to enjoy the win at the same time. But like you said, could always be better. I'm never going to play perfect. So you can get that in your head right now. Never going to play perfect. So that interception, I'll tell you, I heard Coach Day, it was my fault. I got to make the throw. They were in cloud coverage. I try to anticipate it early on. Try to throw it before he broke, but I probably should have waited till he broke a little bit. I thought he was going to go at a higher angle, but Marvin did a great job with that route. I just got to make the throw better. So, and then I just got irritated after that, and I got to get on my own head. So, but I think that's a good thing. And then we fought back. I think that's the most important thing. So, I'm never going to play perfect, never going to be perfect in life and in football or off the field. So, I'm not really worried about your question. It's cool. I like messing with you. Yeah, I guess. Shoot. Numbers all right.
Okay, we'll go over to the deep left. CJ, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
CJ, you guys came out in the first drive and hit a couple big pass plays right off the bat, being spread out. And it felt like that maybe opened up the run then, that you had them spread out with the formations, and then you ran on them. Can you just talk about that kind of balance to spread out a defense, and then maybe they're in conflict of they don't know whether to try to stop the run or the pass, and you guys are doing both?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we definitely I think it goes back to the offseason of dealing with Coach Mick, of being very balanced, being able to run the ball and throw the ball. And I think we're over like 250 in both aspects. So, I mean, when you can do that, man, it's amazing. It makes my job easier as well. So, I know last year we relied on drop back pass so much, and we did a great job at it. But now this year it just makes it more comfortable. I honestly got to be better with just handing the ball off and being more disciplined, and not kind of getting bored. So at the end of the day, we run the ball very well, but I got to be able to stay warm and stay engaged. So I'm not saying that I didn't do that. I can always be better. So I definitely think if we keep both aspects rolling well, then I think we'll be one of the best offenses in the country.
Over here to the right, Tim May on 3.com.
CJ, Cade Stover, who knew, right? I mean, well, you knew, but y'all splitting him out and stuff, got some real good mismatches there, it looked like, and stuff. And what has he just brought to the program? I mean, here the last couple of weeks, but especially tonight. I mean,
yeah,
they didn't seem to know how to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, Cade is definitely a Swiss Army knife. He can run, he can block, he can do really anything. So it's just amazing to see his work kind of pay off. And man, he's one of the first people that took me under his wing when I first got to school. So he's a better person than he is a football player. So I mean, I'm really proud of him. And I owed him for last week. I missed one-on-one today. That was kind of irritating, but I mean, he got two. So but we can always be better. He actually blamed himself on that, but I'm gonna take the blame. So at the end of the day, I mean, we can always be better, and I think Cade is gonna continue to be great. I'm super excited for him, super happy for him.
We got time for a couple more for CJ. Over here to the left, Bill Bender, The Sporting News.
CJ, I think 10 of your first 15 plays went for 10 yards or more. You guys were really in a rhythm with that. How much of that was the script, or how much was execution? And when you guys are in a groove like that, I mean, what's it like in the huddle, or not in the huddle, just in general for you when you get going like that?
Right. I definitely think it's a mixture of everything. I mean, it starts in practice. I mean, practicing so hard. I mean, we practice so hard on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then clean it up on Thursday. So you can put 2 great days in. I think that's definitely where it starts. But it's a mixture of everything. I mean, Coach Day did a great job with play calling with Coach Wilson. And then, I mean, like, it's our job to execute. And so, I mean, everybody was yelling, hoorah, an all-black game. But I think my job was just to lead the offense and tell them we just need to execute. Everybody calm down, let's execute, and just try to have fun. So I definitely think we did that. And we'll continue to build. So, I mean, if we can, like, keep the running and pass game so clean, and I think definitely the play call will be easier for Coach Day. Execution will be easier for us.
And final question right here, front row, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Oh, that sounds funny, bro.
No. It's
All
a
right.
normal question.
All right.
4 weeks into this, and I know you're not going to say you played perfect and whatnot, but 4 weeks into your second year as a starting quarterback, just how do you feel like you're playing so far?
I mean, I don't really think that's my place to judge. Of course, I mean, I'm going to go listen to the coaches and what Coach Day, Coach Dennis, Coach Fish got to say, Coach Key, see what their feedback is. And, I mean, I think it's something that we do great at Ohio State. We don't look back. I mean, after our Sunday practice, it's like it is what it is. So, I mean, whoever I'm playing, we're winning. I don't really care. Like I said early on in the season, as long as we win, I'm cool. And I think the numbers show. I mean, the numbers prove it for themselves. I mean, I think that, but it's just not just me. You know what I mean? That it's a combination of my linemen, my tight ends, my running backs, my receivers. I mean, our special teams, our defense, a little bit of everything. Just the hard work kind of paying off. So, I mean, if people think I'm playing good, cool. If they don't, cool. They hate it anyway. So, I mean, I'm blessed from God to be in this position. So,
great. CJ, thank you very much.
Y'all.
All right, there you see CJ Stroud. I'm not sure where Kevin is. Do we have
Jackson up to the main podium now?
we're going to Jackson. Say Jackson. Going to the main podium. Okay, there we go. Donovan Jackson to the main podium. Offensive lineman, starting left guard.
Over here to the left, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
How much do you feel like you guys are moving the line of scrimmage in the run game and pushing them back and opening holes?
Well, we knew we had to, and during the week of preparation, we had to really think about how tough we wanted to be. You know, as offensive line unit, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. So coming into the game, we knew we had some looks, we had some matchups we can take advantage of. And so all 5 guys, and rather all 11 guys on the offense, were clicking on all cylinders in the run game. But we knew there's a lot of stuff to improve on. We had some success, but a lot of stuff to clean up on.
Over here to the right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Hey, Donovan. You feel like you guys are starting to build some momentum as an offensive line. It just felt like from last week against Toledo to this week, you just kind of continued knocking guys back, like Doug said, and kind of reestablishing a line of scrimmage for you guys. Do you feel like you're kind of building on top of things right now?
Right. It just goes back to what Coach Day says, like keep stacking weeks. We had some success early on, but we got to keep on going. We got to have competitive stamina, which means we got to keep on going every week. But we had some early success going on, but there's a lot of stuff to clean up on. So I'm looking forward to getting back to the film and getting back to work.
Over to the left, Lori Schmidt, Columbus Dispatch.
Speaking of things that Coach Day has said, he mentioned tonight that the energy before the game was something special that he knew, especially from Travion. Was there something that you saw in the locker room before the contest that told you this was going to be a good night for you guys?
Well, I'll say, especially in Travion's case, he stepped in a major leadership role. And so he's letting his voice be heard, and he's telling the offensive line, look, we can dictate this game, we can get after it. And so having that voice of one of our running backs just telling you, hey, man, I got y'all if you got me, is really pushed us to, I would say, go above and beyond on the field.
Over to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Donovan, to be able to dominate, to control the line of scrimmage the way you did, first of all, what's that feeling like when you're just opening up holes and they're getting the second level every play?
Well, it's a very gratifying feeling, moving a man from point A to point B. But, doing it with your brothers is the most gratifying thing. I may block one guy, but if all 5 of us on the offensive line are on the same page, the run doesn't hit. So having the ability to have success in the run game today was very special.
Touchdowns on all 6 first-half drives last week. You scored touchdowns on your first 4 drives tonight. Is it
first touchdown that he scored? Actually, the second one where he was wide open in the back of the end zone. That play worked 4 or 5 times against you guys. Is that something that's true, or is he just talking that up?
Yeah, it's true. That's a hard play. That's a very hard play. But yeah, it's definitely worked. Yeah.
What makes that play challenging as a linebacker, even as for those cornerbacks and those safeties in the secondary?
Yeah, I think when you get down the goal line, you're just reading run so much, and then you leak out late. And, I don't want to give away the game plan, but I think people saw it. But yeah, it's hard. So.
Tommy, what is different about you this year? Is it simply just the experience you had last year, or are things being done differently that's allowed you to have the success you had?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think we're all just playing together really well. So.
Anything else for Tommy? All good? All right, thank you, Tommy.
Thanks, guys.
Pizza.
All right, there you got to see Tommy Eichenberg and all of his boisterousness. He saves that for the field. We might be done at the podium. Oh, well, would you look there? There's Tom Orr. Tom was shooting photos today. And there is Justin. All right, good to have you all back. I think we might be done in the postgame. Justin, I just wanted to ask you about Cade Stover. We didn't really spend too much time on him, but that guy, as CJ said, he's a Swiss Army knife. What did you see from him tonight that allowed him to not just be the pass catcher, but also kind of setting the edge and really being one of those run blockers out there outside?
So he's definitely a physical kid. He's going to be good in the box. I think he's been good in the box since he's been at Ohio State, even if he's been on D. I think that's not a question. I'm just surprised at how good he's been in space. He's able to play the number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver in the box, and that's going to create mismatch issues, especially moving forward. If they can get a mismatch that they like him maybe on a nickel where he's a lot bigger, like Notre Dame would use their tight end fairly similar. Like they'll get him on a nickel where he's a much bigger than, especially in the red zone, of getting him on a guy that's a little bit smaller and taking advantage of that mismatch. And I think that's where you're starting to see Day go with Stover, is he's able to dictate matchups with Stover. And I think since you've got so many receivers that you've got to worry about, or you've got to double or bracket, that leaves Stover in a lot of one-on-one matchups. And I think he's surprising people so much, and he's surprising Day so much that he's getting him the ball just because he's been such a surprise and he's been so athletic. So when you have that tight end who's really good in the box, can play in the phone booth, he can play out wide in the slot, you got to take advantage of it. And I think Days finally has that guy. Not to say Rucker wasn't, but it's been such a surprise this year that Days just like, what the hell? I mean, I got to get the ball to him. We've got guys that are getting bracketed or doubled. That's just a guy you get the ball to. So moving forward, I think it's going to get even better. And then you're probably going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups out wide once they start to double Stover. So it's just a good thing for Ohio State's offense. It makes them that more explosive than they already were.
Yeah. Tom, I'm going to toss this over to you now and let you handle this while I get over there. But you and I, we are not surprised. This is, as we know, the year of the tight end.
Yeah, it is canon. It is the year of the tight end, just as last year was the year of the tight end, the year before that. This year, though, the Great Pumpkin has shown up. Godot has arrived. Guns N' Roses has dropped Chinese Democracy. They finished the Second Avenue subway line. Whatever waiting forever kind of thing analogy you want to draw, it has happened. Like, this is the year that all of a sudden, yes, the tight end is actually a factor in the passing game, and not just a little bit of window dressing or a little bit of, oh, look, they used it twice today. Isn't that cute? He had as many targets as Marvin Harrison. He had more catches and more yards than Marvin Harrison. And this is the second week in a row that he's done that. And it just, that to me has been, I guess, Justin, my question would be, is that a function of them not having Jackson Smith and Jigba and needing another weapon in the passing game? Or is this something that, that you think might continue after Jackson Smith and Jigba's back and they have kind of the wide receiver depth and rotation that they were maybe anticipating they were going to have this year?
Just when you think in terms of like schematically, I think it's something that continues just because you can get him matched up on a smaller body, like a nickel or a corner if he's out wide. I still think you can rotate those 3-4 receivers that they have, but to create that mismatch with the tight end, I think that's something Day's definitely going to take advantage of. He's such a schematic and he's got such a bright play calling brain that I think he's going to continue to use it. Like you can create schemes where you're going to motion him from the box and get him out wide. And that you're going to be able to determine very quickly, is it going to be man or zone? And then if you like the mismatch right away, CJ can know that I can go to the tight end. He's going to be mismatched. He's going to be one-on-one with a nickel, bigger body. I'm getting him the ball. So I don't think once Jason's back, at least if it were me, I don't make the big bucks like Day, but I tend to think he's going to continue to use it just because it's worked so well, and he's going to get mismatches that he's going to want. And then once Stover starts to get more targets, more catches, defensively, you've got to start to adjust. How are we going to handle the tight end when he's in the box? Is it going to be different when he's in the box versus out wide? Are we going to roll down a safety in the box just because he's such a good tight end and it adds another gap and he's such a good blocker in the run game? And if he's out wide, are we going to bracket him? So if you bracket the tight end, that's going to leave the 3 really good receivers one-on-one somewhere. So I think, in my opinion, I think Day will continue to use it, yes.
And, Ryan Day has talked in the past about, he's going to be on the field. Whether they're throwing to him or not, he's going to be on the field. Ryan Day feels it is that having the tight end on the field is a crucial part of their run game. Can you sort of explain why is that so important? Why does Ryan Day view that as like a necessary piece of what they want to do in the run game?
It adds a gap, first of all, on either side of the run. You've got to account for them, especially if teams want to play man coverage. You have to account for them. So anytime that Ohio State runs like their mid zone where the tight end's going away, a lot of teams will have to honor that tight end going away, and that deletes a number to the run side. You can do so many things with the tight end in the box in the run game that it adds another layer defensively of how we're going to prepare for that. And they run a lot of boot action off of that run game where you have to honor the tight end there. So it's just another layer that you have to prepare for, like for defensive coordinators. Like it just adds another, 2 to 3 hours that you're watching film on how we're going to prepare for that tight end. But there's just so many things you can do, and if he can catch the football, it's really, really hard defensively to be able to game plan for a tight end, and then you've got arguably the best wide receiver room in the country. So Run game wise, it adds a gap, and then there's just so many other things you can do. Like if you have a tight end in the box, how are you going to handle that? If you're going to walk down a safety to account for that gap, that means I have a one-on-one out wide. I have an advantage that I can take advantage of. And Day's obviously really good at finding that mismatch. So, like I said, there's just a lot of things I could go on and on about it. I'm not going to take up all the time, but I'm glad he's doing it. It's very smart. It's very sound football.
On the other side of the ball, Tommy Eichenberg was pretty clearly one of the big stories tonight. He finished with, I guess, a whole mess of tackles as I try and pull it up. 14 tackles, 7 solo, 2 tackles for loss. And I just saw someone in the comment, there we go. 14 tackles for him, 6 for Steel Chambers, 6 for Josh Proctor. I mean, it was just a very, very impressive day all around. But I mean, this was a Tommy Eichenberg game. It reminded me, this was the classic middle linebacker game. Like when Ohio State middle linebackers were used to just pile up hundreds of tackles in a year, it was because you were facing teams that were run between the tackles kinds of teams, like Wisconsin kind of still is. That has kind of gone away, but it reminded me a little bit of when Ohio State played Army in 2017, I think. Yeah. And Tuff Borland was a redshirt freshman, and no one really knew anything about Tuff Borland. And then, they're just running the fullback up the A-gap a million times. And so Tuff Borland finishes with 12, 14 tackles, whatever, and everyone's convinced he's, the next Dick Butkus. Tommy Eichenberg has been productive. That wasn't the case for Tommy Eichenberg tonight. Like, yeah, he had big numbers because they were running the ball a bunch, but also he's been productive in all of these games. I saw someone calling him an All-American potentially this year. How much of this Tommy Eichenberg's increased production do you chalk up to just Tommy Eichenberg versus how much do you chalk up to Jim Knowles and, how he sort of wants to spill those backs over to the linebackers, which is kind of necessarily going to end up with bigger stat numbers?
Right. Coaches put kids in positions to be successful, and obviously Knowles has done that with him. But I also think he's able to see the game a little bit better just because of what they're running defensively. He's able to be more of a see ball, hit ball, which is very elementary football there. But I think it's also a credit to the front 4 guys who were able to not let guards and tackles get in Tommy's face. Tommy's able to see the ball. He's able to see the game and the run game better. And that's really attributed to where he's been this year. And obviously Knowles has put him in really good spots. Some of the stuff he's dialed up just to free up Tommy. But I think it's a little bit of both. He's seeing the game a little bit better. I think he's just a year older, more experienced. And then the scheme that Knowles has obviously brought is huge. And Knowles, I think he has a big part in the linebacker unit. So I think it's a mix of everybody. The front 4 is doing their job. Knowles is putting him in a really good spot. And he's just a year better. And I think he's gotten a lot better over the years. So I think it's a credit to really everything defensively. And then also I see that his tackles for loss have been really good. And that attributes more to Tommy. He's seen the game so quickly. He's able to fill where he needs to behind the line of scrimmage. And that's really attributed to his tackle for losses as well.
One thing that was very interesting to me tonight was, you saw Jair Brown, true freshman, out there playing corner and really didn't get tested very much, which might say more about the Wisconsin offense than anything else.
Right.
J.K. Johnson looked pretty good out there in the limited time. He had the one down the sideline where he, let his guy get behind him and thought he was going to, I think he thought he was going to pick it off and it went over his head for a long one. But other than that, he was really solid. The thing that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit was, boy, we saw Sonny Styles awful early tonight, didn't we? What, I have been kind of driving the, pump the brakes, relax, right. don't, you don't want to put too much pressure on someone who should still be playing high school football. And then you see him out there against Wisconsin in the first quarter. And, it's not like they don't have other guys who they could put out. There are other veteran guys they could put in there ahead of him. They have very affirmatively chosen to put him out there.
Yes.
What does he bring to the defense that maybe other guys don't necessarily bring? And how would you, grade how he did? What did you see out of him tonight?
So I think with him, and I watched him a little bit in high school, he sees the game really quickly, especially from the depth that he plays at. And I think that's really hard to do at that position. And he's already got a college body, if that makes sense. Like when he was a junior last year in high school, he looked like he should have been playing college ball already. So he's got the physical attributes. and he's able to see the game really well. And if you have those two things at the college level, you're going to be able to play pretty quickly. And I think that's why they've inserted him. I think last week they tested him a little bit just to see, like, all right, show us what you got. And obviously he showed enough to them, and he showed enough in practice to the staff that they trust him enough to put him in a game versus Wisconsin. So I think he sees the game really well. He's very physical, and he's got the body and the speed, and he's going to be a freaking force to be reckoned with these next couple of years. So very happy he's with the Buckeyes, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was someone who I think you knew was going to be an impact player at some point. The
Right.
surprise is just how quickly it has sort of started to happen. And,
right.
If this was 2023 and he's a true freshman and he's starting to make a little bit of an impact, okay, that's kind of
right.
That's maybe sort of what you'd expect. He's a year early and on that track. So, yeah, that was very surprising to me. The game itself, it's funny, the score ended up more or less where I thought it was. I think I picked 42-20 and it ended up 52-21. So it's like, okay, we're in the ballpark. But this was, of all the 31-point wins you'd have over a, sort of brand name team against Wisconsin, this one felt like a not as close as the score might indicate. And Wisconsin always feels to me like they are a very good team, a very solid team, a very fundamental team for the most part, but they just don't match up with Ohio State at all. This is 9 in a row now for Ohio State. A lot of them have not been close. This was just, Ohio State got the ball, went right down the field, boom, 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 touchdown. Get the Wisconsin's first turnover drive. They have the pick by Tanner McAllister, immediate touchdown. It's 14-0. I was like, oh, this game's over already. Like this is crazy. In Ohio State, 10 of the first 15 plays went for at least 10 yards. I can't ever remember that happening before. That's a new one, I think, on me. What is it that makes Wisconsin? I mean, Wisconsin beats a lot of teams, and Wisconsin just doesn't play well with Ohio State basically ever. So what is it about Wisconsin that just they're not a challenge for Ohio State right now?
I mean, a lot of it goes back to talent. I know they put on the screen tonight during the broadcast. I think Wisconsin's got 23 or maybe 4 or 5-star kids, and then Ohio State has like 66. So talent obviously is going to be a distributing factor, but I think we've matched. The big thing with Ohio State and Wisconsin is we are matching their physicality. And I said this, I don't know, like 20, 30 minutes ago. If Wisconsin cannot beat you in a phone booth, they're going to struggle. And that's just been their program for however long. And Ohio State's been able to match their physicality and almost take it to another level. And until Wisconsin either A, gets more talent or changes their philosophy, I don't see this really changing anytime soon. And they've got to get better at the quarterback position. They haven't been good at that position in quite a while. And I think until they do that and they're able to throw the ball, teams are just going to load the box and stop the run. And if you can score, you're going to beat Wisconsin. So I think they need to change their ways. I watched them play Washington State, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And if you just look at the screens, if you look at the programs, Ohio State just looks like a completely different program Wisconsin does in terms of personnel and just the look of the kid. And so I think Wisconsin's going to get better at that. I hope they're not taking a step back because I like when Wisconsin's good. But I think it's been a talent factor. I think we've been able to match their physicality just because that's what they pride their program on. And we've been able to match it and take it to another level. And until they fix that, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I went over to the Paul Chryst postgame interview, and it struck me the difference between I listened to that, and then I listened to kind of the end of the Ohio State interviews, and just the tone of the questions and the tenor of the conversation between those two. And it's a win and a loss, and it's a 31-point win and a 31-point loss, and okay,
right.
So it sort of makes sense. But the Ohio State one was just sort of wow, how did you do that, essentially? And the Wisconsin one, Paul Chryst is getting questions about, there's questions. The fan base is starting to question the direction of the program. Is the program trending in the wrong direction and all that kind of stuff? And you kind of wonder, Paul Chryst made some interesting choices during the game, I thought.
A lot.
I am the driving the stop punting on 4th and short bus. That is my particular hobby horse, but and they're down 21-0, and they're 4th and 1 at his own 43 maybe, and he punts. And he was asked about that. It was like, well, we'd already given them one short field, and I thought maybe we could pin them back, and maybe we flip the field a little bit. It's like, which game are you watching that you think like maybe
Right.
I think the defense is due for a stop? It's very interesting because he just. That one was a little bit troubling to me, just in terms of like I'm not sure what that decision was really based on. But I mean, how would you grade his performance tonight, Paul Chris? Because he just seemed a little like he didn't know what to do at times.
They definitely like teams. When you play Ohio State, you got to play to win. You can't sit back and you can't try and play like I'm going to hold the ball. They just weren't very aggressive. And to beat Ohio State, I think you got to be aggressive. And I think looking back at Notre Dame, I thought they started the game fairly aggressive, and I thought they took control of the game a little bit. And that's kind of where Wisconsin did not go. Like when you're down 14-0 and your defense has showed you that you can't stop Ohio State, and you decide to give the offense the ball back, I think that's not the right move, especially in that situation. And I just thought they played some bad ball. It was some bad scheme tonight. Their DC put them in some bad spots. A lot of the times they were running different stunts to where they're out of position of where we're running or throwing the ball, especially in the run game. They're running a lot of simulated pressures and creeper pressures where we're running just a basic mid-zone, and they're so far out of position that it didn't even matter. So I just think I don't want to say they were unprepared. That's not what I want to say, but it just seems like they weren't scouted well. It seems like they were out of position. I know their DC gets a lot of credit nationwide or throughout college football, but I thought they struggled tonight as well. So the program doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. I thought Chris definitely played it very conservative. Like when they were down 3 possessions, they were still running the football fairly heavily. Like, I don't care how bad your quarterback is. If you're down 3 possessions, you want to stop the clock and make sure that thing doesn't run if you want to have any chance to win the game. And when you're throwing the football down 3 possessions, or when you're running the ball down 3 possessions, it shows me you have zero confidence in your program. So it's just showing your kids the exact same thing. And when your kids see that, they start to feel it, and then that's kind of where their program's going to be this year. I think the kids are going to start to lose confidence, and I hope it's not too far gone, but that's kind of what it felt like tonight. It just Ohio State got a hold of the game, and then Wisconsin never fought back. And Wisconsin's always been that program to, like, if you're going to punch them in the mouth, they're going to punch you right back. And it felt like tonight there was none of that. So it's almost like they've lost their physicality.
Well, another thing that they did that I thought was really interesting was, you talked about not, just continuing to run the ball and not, managing the clock like you were trying to win the game.
Right.
The other thing was, if you can't get the opposing offense off the field, you've got to figure out a way to keep the ball away from them and steal a possession somewhere. And, Ohio State had scored touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. Wisconsin scores a touchdown, cuts it to 28-7. To me, that's the time that, how many onside kicks do you have in your playbook, and pull one out? Because I don't know, I'm sure Ohio State was I was kind of keeping an eye on, guys like CJ Hicks in that front line for the Ohio State kick unit to see, are they leaving early? Is that, something they could potentially take advantage of? No, they were very disciplined. So, that's not necessary. It feels like there wasn't necessarily a very obvious onside kick opportunity, but it feels like you just have to do something there. Like, show me something that indicates you're trying to win the game and not managing this to just kind of keep the score respectable. That's always, it's similar to punting on 4th and 1. Don't give the ball up when your defense has shown no ability to stop the opponent.
Right. And when you don't have the talent that your opposing team does, you either limit possessions, like you eat at the clock, or you've got to, like you said, you've got to find different ways to take advantage of guys leaving early on kickoff, guys are they're in punt safe, so you have some space to work with on a fake punt on 4th and 1. But when you get down 14 points or 2 to 3 possessions, you don't keep eating clock. You got to find ways in the passing game or trick plays that I'm sure they practice day in and day out, because every program has those. They have periods where they practice any type of like special play or a fake punt period. Every program's got that. And you've got to pull out those stops, I think, just to fight back or give your kids a fighting chance. And we didn't see that tonight. And I it's sad to see that, because Wisconsin's always been the team that'll punch it right back. And I don't know. I don't know why he made some of those decisions tonight that he did, and they've got to fix their offense. They don't look very good up front. I thought Ohio State really controlled the line of scrimmage. I know they were down both their starting tackles, but they were able to control the line of scrimmage tonight. So if Wisconsin wants any chance to be any better this year moving forward, they've got to get better up front.
Well, Justin, we are going to wrap you up for the evening. Tony Gerdeman is up here in the press box with me now. Hey, he's on. Look at that. Tony Gerdeman on camera here. Who's that handsome devil behind you, Tony? He's creating an echo because his laptop is open, so he's going to stop talking now, and Tony's going to start talking. Ready, set, go.
Thank you, John, for that wonderful introduction. Please, everybody back behind me, turn off your computers as we wait for Tom to slide in like Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels. So, yes, thank you all for sticking with us. Thank you, Tom, for taking over for me with Justin. And thank you, Justin, for hanging out with us and giving us the X's and O's and the actual intellect of the show. And the now comes the hot takes because Tom.
Start the circus music. It's Buckeye Weekly time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, that power pause lasted longer than the drama of that football game. That was Ohio State got the ball to start the game. They don't always take the ball to start the game. I don't know if they won the toss.
They lost the toss.
They lost the toss. Okay. So they lost the toss. They get the ball to start the game, and it's like, oh, no, that's terrible. They never wanted it. Boom, touchdown. Wisconsin gets the ball. Tanner McAllister interception, runs it back inside the red zone, touchdown. And it was like, oh, and this game's over already. Like, that's it. Ta-da. The end. And it's funny. I was just talking to Justin about I would love one. Thank you. I was just talking to Justin about the fact that, the game ended up score-wise not far off from where I thought it might. I picked 42-20 and ended up 52-21. It's, you're in the ballpark. And yet it wasn't at all the game I expected because I thought, well, this will be a little bit of a back and forth. And, Wisconsin, with Wisconsin, you generally get they don't match up with Ohio State in very specific ways. And we talked about that on the pregame a bunch. But this was like there was a moment that it was like I tweeted a joke about Baylor and TCU missing the playoff if this game got any worse, and it was like there were some real 2014 Big Ten championship game vibes in that first quarter.
Yeah, I was like, when was the last time Ohio State beat Wisconsin this bad? Oh, yes. It wasn't quite that bad, but at the time it was as back and forth as like. Back and to the left of JFK. That's the kind of back and forth that this game was. Too soon? When it was 28-0 at some point. It's late. It's already late, and we're just getting started. But yes, Ohio State 52-21 over the Wisconsin Badgers. Badgers now fall to 2-2 on the season. Ohio State moves to 4-0. And this offense was really, really impressive. But one of the things that C.J. Stroud said after the game was like, anytime you can rush for 250 yards and throw for 250 yards, Tom, it's a good day, and it's really difficult to stop. And it's just you kind of got to celebrate those kind of games.
I wasn't actually celebrating because, well, you know why. Frequent listeners of the Buckeye Weekly podcast will know why I found that not at all amusing. For the second week in a row, for them to have hit the 220 mark and not thrown the ball nearly as much, which I was really banking on. That's all right. We're not here to talk about my problems. We're here to talk about the game. And it was balanced, and it was just they could just do whatever they wanted to. It was, Mayan Williams runs for 9.8 yards per carry, whatever it was. 2 running backs over 100 yards, and Braylon Allen ended up with a nice shiny number, but it was really kind of polished up by some meaningless yardage in the fourth quarter.
Well, and we might have Braylon Allen's fourth quarter stats here. 8 carries, 98 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And he finished with 175. And really, I think some of that 7.5-minute drive started maybe in the third quarter as well. So he had some yards there, probably 140 or 100. No, he had about 60 going into the third quarter, into the third quarter. Kevin, super chat.
Yes, DK, Tom, was that your favorite touchback ever?
I missed it.
It was
this,
yes.
when
This
did
was,
it happen?
This was the very end of the game. Ohio State had 4th and 1 at the plus
Yeah,
39.
right. Okay, I
And I
remember.
said, Ryan Day, you know what you should do? Punt that ball away. And you know what he did? He did it. And Jaden Ballard went down, and he
that's right.
almost downed it. Almost downed it, but he didn't. Tony, that's 2, Jardo. So that's but again, we'll get to the bold prediction show in a little bit.
Not even tonight.
Not even tonight. Yes, it was the most of the drama in the fourth quarter was Tony and I texting back and forth about the potential permutations of, well, if they finish this drive with a bunch of passing yards, then I will get points for this, or if they someone scores a touchdown that hasn't scored a touchdown, we'll have this. Did not see a punt into the end zone. First career touchback for Jesse Murko coming. But, Tony, that's why you play the game.
No, and again, we do not need to get into the bold predictions, but I had Travion Henderson out-rushing Braylon Allen, which was a shoe-in until that 75-yarder. But, again, we could talk about the Ohio State running game and not in a way that does not involve any of my bold predictions. But 258 yards rushing, 1 yard lost, and that was on a kneel down. At the end of the half or whatever it was. But that's when the defense never tackles you in the backfield with the running game, and especially with the running game that does a bit of it out of the shotgun, out of the pistol. You're starting 3 or 4 yards deep, and for Wisconsin never to get in there. And the offensive line, the Ohio State offensive line, just bullied Wisconsin. And they were bigger, and they outnumbered them because there were times where it was like a 6-man box. You had the 2 defensive linemen, the 2 outside linebackers, and 2 inside linebackers, and you're going to send them against Mayan Williams and this offensive line and Travion Henderson in this offensive line. Wisconsin had no chance.
Yeah, and here, take a look at the drive chart. You want to talk about having no chance? Here it is: 6 plays, 88 yards; 2 plays, 16 yards after the Tanner McAllister interception; 7 plays, 70 yards; 8 plays, 67 yards; touchdown, 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 touchdown. Like, okay, and that's it. And it was just. In the second quarter, he had 2 more, another scoring drive there. The interception, that was about the only negative thing that happened on offense at any meaningful point of the game. And that looked like a miscommunication, maybe, from where I was. I don't know. I obviously don't have access to replays where I am. But
Ryan Day took the blame for it, and then C.J. Stroud gets in there. And because Ryan Day said, as all of the viewers who stuck with us through the outset said, he wanted to get points there. And then he said, what I should have done is that it was my fault. I wanted points, basically, and we threw the ball. We should have just run it 3 times and accepted the boos that would have come from the fans. Basically, I think the way he made it sound is, I'm not saying he's blaming the fans for the interception, but he didn't really want to just run the clock out and get the boos as you head off the field. And then what ends up happening, you throw an interception and you run off the field with the crowd booing at halftime.
Well, it's because he took a knee. It was, that was a weird end of the half. It was just, it felt like, okay, they're about to get to the half, and then it just sort of kept dragging on. It was like, wait, and how did they got the ball back again? What? How did that happen?
I went for my halftime hot dog, and I was still eating it. I was done with the halftime hot dog before halftime even started. But, so he took the blame. And then C.J. Stroud, who was listening to Ryan Day's press conference, said, I heard Coach take the blame. No, that was on me. Basically, he wasn't patient enough. He didn't let the defense do what it needed to do before he threw it. So he let the defense kind of dictate where they wanted to go rather than just being patient, waiting for that to open up. And so, C.J. Stroud, 17 of 27 for 281 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, a long of just 33 yards, which is why you don't have like 380 yards or whatever. But a very, very what's the word that I'm looking for? Just
workmanlike.
Exactly. 4 receivers. That's all who caught the ball. And it was you're starting 4 receivers. You're starting 3 wide receivers and Cade Stover. And it's just like, I'm just going to throw to these guys. And early on, there was nobody in any area code near any of these receivers. It was like, you don't have anybody in the box. You should have. Where's the coverage? Like there's nobody out there.
Yeah, I found it very interesting that there was not a lot of razzle dazzle. There was not a lot of big explosive plays. It was just sort of, very workmanlike. Just okay, well, 52 points against what should be a pretty good defense. the longest run was 25 yards. Trevian Henderson's long run is 16 yards. Long pass of 33 yards. Julian Fleming had a 31-yarder. Cade Stover had 22. It was just there was not the 70-yard touchdown. There was not, the pictures from tonight. I of course always am on the field shooting pictures, and so I'm always thinking in terms of pictures.
Is that right?
And it was like I was talking to some of the other photographers in the third quarter. It was like they've scored so many touchdowns, and none of them have been like visually interesting. It's just like Mayan Williams falling in from the one, Julian Fleming, spinning in the middle of a pack of a bunch of other people, and it's like, trust me, he's in there and he's scoring a touchdown. But you didn't have the like big long breakaway or the the long arcing touchdown pass to Marvin Harrison or any of that. It just was kind of just grind it out. I did enjoy greatly the fullback dive to Mitch Rossi. Which was the better troll of Wisconsin, running the fullback dive to Mitch Rossi to pick up a crucial first down, or playing jump around near the end of the third quarter? It was like,
well, and they've played jump around more often than they've been running the fullback dive over the years against Wisconsin. I also like there's essentially like a sprint draw out of the shotgun that was kind of reminiscent of the 1990s offense where and that was the one where Mayan Williams scored a touchdown from like 8 yards or something, where they don't run a lot of those plays. And you saw the fullback dive kind of thing that they did. That was a surprise, even though they did it last week. It's like you didn't expect it there. It's really interesting the way they're, as I've been saying, like going back to the future type of stuff that they've got going on. And then the way they keep using Cade Stover, as CJ Stroud said, he's the Swiss Army knife. And we came into this game wondering, what does Jackson Smith-Njigba's absence mean for Cade Stover? Does it mean that he won't have as easy of a time, or they will be looking for him more because they need somebody over the middle of the field? And he had 4 catches for 51 yards. Most of those, maybe all of those, came in the first half. There may have been one second-half catch. Should have been a couple more catches. CJ was a little bit too high on a couple. CJ apologized for that because he said, he felt bad because he missed him last week. So then he's like, but I got him this week. Although then I did miss one, but he still got 2. This is not Jeremy Ruckert. This is the tight ends that you see around the nation where they kind of get force-fed, where they're playmakers and they're weapons. That's this guy.
Well, Jeremy Ruckert came in with the 5-star pedigree and number 1 tight end in the nation, and he would make this spectacular play. He would make the one-handed catch in the end zone against Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, and was always sort of the flashy receiving tight end. But the reviews on his blocking were always a little mixed. I have not heard any negative reviews I have not even heard any mixed reviews on Cade Stover's blocking. It's just sort of like, yeah, that dude likes to hit people in the face. And I think coming into the year, our expectation was that was going to be his role. He was going to be the tight end who hit dudes in the face, and then maybe Joe Royer was going to be the pass-catching guy or whatever. Nope. No, Cade Stover is just kind of doing it all. And it's wild to think about how much he's bounced around over the first few years of his career. And it was like, well, will Cade Stover ever find his, will he ever find his forever home? It just, you can put the Sarah McLachlan, the sad Sarah McLachlan music behind it, and sad puppy dog eyes.
Cade Stover behind the cage.
Won't Ohio State coaches, won't someone please adopt Cade Stover? It feels like he has found his forever home because I think he's done bouncing around. I think they have found that he is a pretty good tight end, a well-rounded tight end, and does stuff in that passing game that you just haven't seen. He had 2 touchdowns tonight, and very easily could have had a third. He got his hand on the third one. The only 2 balls that he didn't catch were the one in the end zone where he got his hand on it and just couldn't bring it in, and then the one that was kind of over the middle and he got undercut and he had it and then fell flat on his back and jarred the ball loose. Which, like, if you've ever fallen from that kind of a height flat on your back, yep, you're gonna drop that ball because you're going. I thought he might be done for the day if he banged his head on the turf. I guess he was okay.
He jumped off eventually. Yeah.
But he came back and he has been a really well-rounded and really a true weapon for them.
Although a little too razzle-dazzle flashy when he flipped into the end zone, he could have just run it in and just put his head down. He didn't need to go up high. I think the fame is getting to him a little bit.
Yeah, the famous complaint about Ohio State tight ends, when they catch all of these passes, it's a little showy.
Well, act like you've been there before.
How many? It's an Ohio State tight end. He has not been there before, but here we are in the year of our Lord 2022, the year of the tight end. Who could have seen it coming? I mean, other than us.
Other than us, perhaps nobody. But you know what? We were going to get it right eventually, and we have gotten it right this year with Cade Stover. Congrats to him, and most importantly, congrats to us for sure. Mayan Williams is ridiculous. Now, I don't know why he only carried the ball 11 times. Justin and I were speculating, and I'm not sure everything that you got to talk to with Justin about, but talking about how Travion is still getting used to some of the running schemes, and maybe he's out there getting more work so that he can get that work, because you're going good on good out here, and it's real live, it's game action, which is much more important, more valuable than practice. But it gives him an opportunity to just continue to carry the ball, get his feet under him, get the feel for it. They wanted CJ Stroud to throw the ball a bunch in the first 3 games to just get those reps and get going. And I think they kind of also know that Travion needs to get where Mayan is, and so you give him more work. But they were raving about Travion during pregame warm-up and the way he ran the ball. And I think these guys feed off each other really, really well. And I think Travion, in a good way, is trying to do what Mayan does. Mayan just does what he does, and he's really, really good at it.
Yeah, I think that there are 2 possible explanations for the disparity in carries tonight, and one is that Travion Henderson is the clear number 1 running back, and Mayan Williams is just the backup, and so that's why you give the one guy way more carries. I think the other and actual answer is Travion Henderson only had 3-4 carries last week, and Mayan Williams kind of carried the mail against Akron in the first half. So now you're kind of just balancing the carries out and giving Travion Henderson the reps he didn't get last week. That feels like as much of a 1A, 1B running back situation as they've had in at least 4 years. I mean, I think you go back to the Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins year of 2018 for anything even close to this, because the recruiting rankings would tell you that Travion Henderson is high, by far and away number 1. Every time you watch Mayan Williams run the ball, he's just bowling people over. They're moving the chains. It's just this constant string of 8 to 12 yard runs for him, just every time. And he runs the ball, and I'm down on the field, and I don't have any kind of real depth when the ball's a little further away on the field. And so you're just kind of you're judging it based on how long is he running in terms of amount of time is he running forward towards me. That's how you kind of figure it out. And it's just, and then you end up looking up at the scoreboard okay, did I guess correctly? And it was just constantly 2nd and 2, 2nd and 1, picking up 8 yards, 9 yards. That's remarkable. And the offensive line to clear some of those lanes for him, he doesn't need a completely clear, perfect road to operate on. But man, he was running behind some. They were plowing that road for him.
Yeah, well, and together, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams averaged 7 yards a carry, and the longest carry of the day was 25 yards. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They just churned out yards. Mayan Williams, as you said, it's 8 to 12 yards anytime he runs to the left or the right. They did some good stuff on the left side today. Let's move to the Ohio State defense, which – Graham Mertz, 11 of 20 passing with an interception for 94 yards. The only team and they threw for 104 because of one of the Wildcat touch passes went for 10 yards. But so they hold the Wisconsin Badgers to 104 yards. And then they rushed for 192 yards. Of course, 75 of that came at the end there. So you're basically holding this Badger offense to under 250 yards, under 200 yards while the game still matters. And that's through 3 quarters. And we kept talking all, once Jim Knowles was hired. Yeah, Jim, what happens when you play Wisconsin? What are you going to do? What are you going to do with your fancy nickel defense then, Jim? And then he said, well, I'll show you what I'm going to do. We're going to shut Wisconsin down, and that's what we're going to do. Now, as Justin pointed out in the immediate postgame, it's kind of hard to run the ball when you're down 21-0 before you even, have gotten the Gatorades poured, basically. And then it's like, well, crap, what do we do? But the defense was strong up the middle against the run, I thought, throughout. And really, Braylon Allen did nothing until the last 20 minutes of the game, and there's nothing. They were trying to run out the clock at that point, and if they got yards out of it, all the better.
Well, and they really didn't let the fact that they were down 21-0 or 28-0 keep them from running the ball. They ran the ball 35 times and threw it 21. I mean, it was not a night where they got desperate and started throwing. This was, you go back to like the Purdue game in 2018 where Dwayne Haskins threw 73 passes because they were just behind. It was like, well, they have to throw. Wisconsin never did that. And going up against a redshirt freshman corner making his first career start in J.K. Johnson and a true freshman corner making his first career start in Jair Brown, I mean, there were a couple moments in the first half that was just like, oh, this is just not going to happen for them. And one of them was they're down 14-0 and they come out and they're still running the ball. And it was like, oh, either they don't know that there are two guys making their first career starts at corner, or they know they literally do not have a quarterback and running back who can take advantage of even that, which should be, that it's not quite fish in a barrel, but I mean, a true freshman corner starting, you should be able to take advantage of that. Any kind of a half decent offense is going to be able to take advantage of that. And they couldn't. And those were not the only young guys out there because, how are they going to deal with Wisconsin? Well, they're just going to run Sonny Styles out there, like shockingly early in the game. I didn't even notice it at the time. And at halftime, I was in there kind of zipping through some photos to try and find some stuff to send you guys. And I was like, who the heck is that out there at the start? And it was like the first drive. There's Sonny Styles. Like, what's he doing out there?
Well, can I tell you, and we've mentioned this on the show before, I hate the black jerseys because you cannot read numbers from up in the press box. 20 looks like 30, looks like 88, looks like 66. I mean, it all looks the same. So, like, I didn't even realize Sonny Styles was out there until he got a penalty on him, basically, one of those things. And I don't know who to talk to. Nike, do I need to, let's do something about these numbers. Dark on dark, not ideal.
P.S. I am not a crackpot.
I am not a crackpot. Look at those clouds, those angry clouds. The one of my bold predictions, again, we don't need to talk about it, holding Wisconsin to like no catches of 17 yards or more. They had 2. And starting receiver Shimre Dike, just 1 catch of 9 yards. I don't know, maybe they saw Jair Brown and they see him wearing 18. They're like, don't throw it against Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison's going to come up with the interception. Stay away from Harrison. But the outside talent that they have is just not all of that talented, and it showed.
Yeah, this was a game where I talked to Justin about this a little bit. This is one of these things we talked about on the pregame show as well. Wisconsin is built to beat teams like Minnesota and Iowa and Nebraska, who can't really score a ton of points typically and don't have a ton of great athletes outside. And you're just sort of Heartland Farm, run the ball them, and just
You out Heartland them.
You do the good old Midwestern. We're gonna let me just slide by you there and win this game 17-14. All right then.
You have a good day. You too.
All right. Let's
See
go
you
get
next year.
Let's go get some hot dish. All right then. Should bring Jerry in to do this. Our buddy Jerry Emick from Minnesota should bring him in to talk hot dish. Maybe next time. Let's talk Wisconsin instead. They're built to do that. They're built to beat those teams. And then they come up against Ohio State, and it's just like, yep, we got nothing. I got nothing for this. Like it's the same basic game every time. Like, wow, look at this offensive line and these running backs, and oh boy, they're so fundamentally sound in the defense, and oh man, and just like, nope, you can't run the ball because their defensive, the Ohio State defensive line is too big and strong and fast, and they have too many fast players outside, so you can't throw the ball. And on defense, like, well, you can't really keep up with the wide receivers, and that means you got to kind of back out, and that means that then they can run the ball, and then you lose by 17 to 34 points, and then and then maybe you see them again in Indianapolis, or maybe you don't. This year, it's sort of seeming like you might not see
No.
Wisconsin in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and it sure seemed like Wisconsin, as you said, they had nothing for them, nothing for Ohio State. Paul Christ in the post game looking like he's like the town mechanic, but all he really fixes is bikes. And somebody shows up with a Lamborghini, and they're like, "Paul, it's making a knocking sound," and he's just like, "I have a wrench."
It's probably your derailleur. That's what it probably is.
And they were certainly derailed.
Paul Christ is, in the best of circumstances, not the most charismatic individual, and he's not. He is the late great, still alive, but not on the beat anymore. Ryan Ginn used to compare him to the sloth from Madagascar, or one of those Disney movies where it just moves so slowly, and he is not he's not the most engaging personality. He is not going to good or bad light up a press conference room like someone like James Franklin does, but he was just kind of very Jim,
comparatively, relatively,
you've been in
I know, yeah,
memorable James Franklin press conferences. Yes. He said you got to own it. You own your response. Can't hide from it. Just said Ohio State did a good job. Just they were on rhythm, getting the ball out. Not a lot of time for the pass rush to get there. So then you got to deal with these wide receivers in space. My favorite question that someone asked was about his punting on 4th and 1 at the plus 43 or his own 43 with having given up 3 touchdowns on 3 drives, and it's like, have you watched the start of the game?
Right.
What is it that leads you to believe that that punting the ball and playing field position is the right answer? He said, he was also thinking about not wanting to put his defense in a spot where they had another short field. So they were going to pin them down there and try and get the ball back in a good spot. Spoiler alert, Ron Howard narrator voice. Nope, didn't work. They were without a couple of offensive linemen. That's worth mentioning here. Very much like Ohio State was without a couple corners. They were without a couple offensive linemen. The difference, though, is Ohio State had the personnel to take advantage of the fact that they were without offensive linemen. Wisconsin did not have the personnel to take advantage of Ohio State being without a couple corners.
Did anybody talk about they didn't have Ohio State didn't have Lathan Ransom either?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and I guess Ryan Day said afterwards, and he didn't talk about it in the postgame, but said that Lathan Ransom was unavailable. I mean, Josh Proctor, I thought, played really, really well in this one, and played so well that you're not like, oh, they need to get Lathan Ransom in there. Like, he was solid. Ronnie Hickman is, as always, just perfectly fine, and defensively, the safeties did fine. Tommy Eichenberg, 14 tackles. I was talking to Justin about one of those tackles on a flare-out pass into the flats where Tommy grabbed, it was kind of a shoestring tackle. He was the last line of defense. That would have been a touchdown the past couple of years. And he's just been playing really, really well. 2 tackles for loss, 14 total tackles. Only one linebacker with 9 or more tackles, though, Tom, which is what we wanted to see, of course. Kevin, any questions in the chat, or was just a bunch of people chatting?
A lot of chat going on. Brady asks, does Ohio State move to number 2 in the AP poll? Seems like they should.
What did Alabama do today?
They
rolled Vandy.
Yeah, it's like
they got off
48-7 or 41-7 something.
They remembered they were Bama.
Yeah. I don't think
Georgia didn't look good against Kent State.
Yeah,
but you just move Georgia down to 2 if they're going to do anything.
Right. I mean, Georgia's body of work overall is still pretty good. If I think that's much more of a conversation if Wisconsin had beaten Washington State, and even if they win close and gross over Washington State 20-17 or 14-13 or something, you're 3-0, and then it's number 3 Ohio State 52-21 over number 12-14 Wisconsin. Then that probably, should that change? Does that fundamentally change what happened tonight? No, but does that for the purposes of polls? Yes, that does change things. So,
have you ever seen an AP poll?
It sounded like in my head that was the guy from Airplane talking to the kid. You
like gladiator films?
Do you like AP poll films, Tony? It does. This is one of those things where I guess I have a very difficult time getting particularly exercised about week 4 of the AP poll and who is where. Ohio State, as long as Ohio State keeps winning and keeps playing the way they are, the AP poll will sort itself out. And if Ohio State does not keep playing the way they do, if Ohio State, even if Ohio State loses a game, if they're 11-1 and then win the Big Ten and they're 12-1, they're going to be in the playoff, and you pays your money and you take your chances at that point. But I don't find that something that's necessarily worth getting too
No.
worried about.
Right now, the AP poll is about as meaningful as the UPI poll,
Mhm.
which has been dead for about 25 years.
Yes.
Anything else, Kevin?
Troy V was glad the mascot was not injured by that cheap shot by the bubble.
That was a cheap shot. However, Brutus cheap shots those people
Oh.
every single week. That mascot got what he deserved.
I didn't even see it, but yes, Brutus will lay those people in the I don't know. Do they show that on TV?
Well, they showed what happened to Brutus on ESPN like over and over again.
Okay. Yeah. If
He
you
got rocked.
Yes, it was. Brutus will, sneak up and sometimes like blindside people, and you are literally in bubble wrap, like inside one enormous bubble, so you're not probably going to get terribly hurt, but still, like, I mean,
Brutus had to leave the game after that. They took him back under south stands.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not on the availability report though.
Not a super chat, but DK asking a very valid question. How much money does a super chat have to be to get Tom and Tony to fight in inflatable hamster balls?
How much do we have to pay? I mean,
I
that
was
would
going
be
to say
amazing.
$0.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, if you can. Well, I mean, we know where we keep them. They keep them down in the photo bunker in a south stand. So, I think the only thing preventing us from doing it immediately after the completion of this show is the fact that I don't want to go down there and manually inflate with, like sit there. We're sitting there blowing the things up, until Tuesday.
Too windy to actually then get in there and have some fun. But yeah, shoot. I mean, don't threaten us with a good time.
Yeah.
Let's make some super chat money off of it, though.
Yeah.
I get what is the answer to that? Yeah, I don't know. $249.99.
Troy B, the TD to Stover where CJ acted like he was going to run at the goal line and pass it to the TD was a nice wrinkle.
That was just another wide open receiver. There was nobody on that side of the end zone. Two guys run after CJ like they thought he was actually going to run. And then so much of this game, this offense was just playing with the Wisconsin defense. That play was fantastic. Brian Day, the first 20 minutes of this game, best play calling I've ever seen him. Like he, as I tweeted, it seemed like Wisconsin got a fake game plan. Like somebody dropped the Mike Leach fake game plan.
Operation Mincemeat.
Yeah, and they bought it, and he just completely annihilated them with the play call. They could not get any rhythm defensively, and everything they did defensively seemed to play right into what Ohio State was doing offensively.
Really, if you think about it, that's on Paul Christ for not asking, why would someone in a British naval uniform wash up on shore with a briefcase chained to their wrist with the Ohio State game plan in it? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It worked.
Especially in the lake on campus at Wisconsin. Like, what? That doesn't – why would – that doesn't – no, you don't question it. You just go with it.
Just go with it.
Unless you're Herm Edwards, you generally don't have people turning over your game plans like that. So –
well, you know what? Herm Edwards hired somebody who actually did that, and so he should not be upset when it happens to him. Allegedly.
I called it WikiLeaks 2, the devil you know.
It's just a low-level staffer.
It was.
Kevin, did you have anything else other than that?
Response redacted.
Y'all worried about the defense giving up more big plays again? The safety saved another long TD with a last-second breakup as well.
Well, remember, J.K. Johnson and Jair Brown, starting redshirt freshman, true freshman, first starts, they did give up some they got beaten. They didn't necessarily give up any plays out of it, maybe one or two, but they both got beat a couple of times. But obviously you would expect them to get better. Tanner McAllister doing what a safety is supposed to do and help out and break up that one towards the end of the half there. The big 75-yarder, Ryan Day took credit for that one because he told Jim Knowles to get the starters out. Mm-hmm. And so that's on him. But, yeah, I mean, we knew corner was a concern before this game, before you knew who was out and who was going to be playing. And now afterwards, that Ryan Day did say he doesn't think there's anything long-term with Denzel Burke or Cam Brown. But I think, obviously, they probably would have played better than Jair Brown and J.K. Johnson. But I really liked what Ryan Day had to say about how, like, he told those two young guys, the team has faith in you. You know, you've been practicing, you've played, the team has faith in you. And then he also told like Ronnie Hickman, hey, be there for the young guys. Play confidently. Show them how confident you are. Be calm so that they can react to that and bounce off of that. So I thought they did well in preparing those guys and then also playing and not getting burnt by a couple of freshmen who shouldn't have been playing. They handled it.
Yeah, and as in terms of how long those guys are going to be, I don't know that I saw anything obvious with Cam Brown. I don't know that I saw Cam Brown. Do we know what's going on with Cam Brown in terms of
just not a long-term thing?
Yeah, and then Denzel Burke had like a splint on his hand. It was like a couple fingers or something like that. So, probably a broken finger kind of thing. So not. Yeah, that should not be a long-term thing. Jordan Hancock was dressed tonight. I don't believe he played. He was on the availability report as not playing. He was dressed, like fully suited
That's
out,
good.
which is, probably a good sign that, maybe he's on his way back.
I wonder, is he the seventh corner? Like, you obviously don't want to play him, but you need somebody. You need him over it's either him or Cody Simon.
Yeah.
We've got to play the Jordan Hancock, but.
Yeah, we have a couple segments we do want to get to here.
Oh, is that right?
One is our shot at the game. We have that snuck up there a second ago. We might have more than one, but go ahead and punch that up for us.
Oh, really? More than one?
Well,
shots of the game.
Some of us are good at our jobs, Tony.
Sounds like false advertising to me.
All right, there is one of our shots of the game. We had a pregame shot up there a second ago. That is Emeka Egbuka. As I said, there were not a lot of visually interesting touchdowns. This one was a good one where he's going up and Wisconsin defender right there, and the guy on the right. You can see this is going to translate great for the podcast listeners, by the way. But
1,000 words.
Yes, the guy on the right, had jumped up, tried to deflect it, went over him, so he's turning and going, uh-oh. And there's Emeka Egbuka pulling it out of the air. That was the last Emeka, I think it was the last offensive touchdown. It was one in the second half, and then this one, this was pregame. I think, Tony, do you know how many stairs there are between A deck and about 3/4 of the way up C deck?
172.
That is actually remarkably close, I think. There was 121 to go from A deck to the C deck, and then, I was probably 30 rows up, and so you figure 2 stairs per row, so it's probably about 180. So
it's 172.
Yeah, about.
It's the price you pay for being good at your job.
Well, it's yes, it was. I was up there huffing and puffing because it was. I was down on the field right before the game, and I was like, I hadn't decided. Am I going to shoot in the tunnel? Am I going to go up to the top? I was like, oh, it's a night game. They'll do the pyro thing. All right. So
no, you got to take. I mean, you've got to go out and get that shot.
Yes. So and so I did. So yes. So there's that. And then yes, this is Mayan Williams, the last one. I think the last one. Just kind of like taking a little peek. He has fallen into the end zone. Dragged a couple people into the end zone with him.
I don't know why he needs to be looking towards the pylon. Can't he just look at the goal line right below him?
Well, I think he's looking at the official to make sure the official is signaling. Yes, we've had a bunch up, and there's Tanner McAllister returning an interception. That was such a big play in this game where it was just the opening drive was so authoritative, and then last week they scored, and then Toledo answered right back. This week it was they scored and. Wisconsin answered right back by throwing an interception, and then they scored again. Looks like we have a super chat. There's Marvin Harrison turning up field.
We do. FDR is great. Who is Ohio State's future possible trap game before that team up north? What was Paul Chryst complaining about on the field during the game?
So I don't know what Paul Chryst was complaining about on the field. I didn't.
Probably his defense.
Might have been. And at one point,
Kevin James.
At one point, Ryan Day was like apoplectic about a pass interference call.
He talked about that after the game.
I saw Ryan Day getting very annoyed about it. I don't know that I saw Paul Chryst getting super angry about it.
Well, what is super angry for Paul Chryst? Just to gosh darn.
I disagree with that.
What? No, but Ryan Day talked in the postgame about why he was so angry. He doesn't usually talk about calls that he doesn't think are correct, but he didn't necessarily like that call. But also, he wanted to show Jair Brown, I have your back, because The penalty was on Brown. They just wanted to show him like he had his back, and I thought that was another good response for the young guys. Ryan Day talking to, as I said, telling Ronnie Hickman, hey, show these guys that what you can do, and that they can trust you, and that they can be calm. And then he's doing something similar, showing that he's got their back, and just the little things to keep the young guys calm, I think is pretty cool.
And to address the other part of that super chat, trap game before Michigan. I don't think Penn State counts as a trap game at this point. So Kevin stole my answer. I think that trip to Maryland, I think that's the week before Michigan, right?
Yep.
And we have seen Ohio State go down to Maryland the week before a Michigan game and have a dicier than expected time. And I don't think Maryland's incredible, but they gave Michigan a nice little run, and we'll know in a couple weeks how much that says about Maryland versus how much that says about Michigan. But that seems like that to me is the likely answer there.
65-31
is
the final score of that game, with Maryland getting a late touchdown.
65-31. Yeah,
66-31. Sorry.
I think that's a real possibility, and not that Ryan Day has been mad at Maryland at any point, but they sure have scored a lot of points on Mike Loxley. Looks like we got another super chat from Jason Fruth. How much do I have to pay for a super chat to never try to kick the ball off into the corner again? The kickoffs this year have been so much better, and Jaden Fielding had 5 kickoffs, and 4 of them were touchbacks, and then 1 that went out of bounds again. And why don't you just kick it out of the?
Well, I think they also still like to trap these guys inside the 15, and especially this offense. To make this offense go 85 yards, they're not going to do it generally. And so, they didn't do it every time. They just, let's try it this time. And it didn't work. And so next time, just, kick it into the end zone and just go with the touchback, because 75 yards is still really dang difficult for this offense. And,
All right. Well, from Treebuck, another interesting show. How long can this go on? Well, we have to talk Heisman. So we can go a little bit longer.
I made a deal with the cleaning crew.
Okay.
I said we would go for an hour, and that's about 15 minutes.
Okay,
now.
so the answer is 15 minutes because Kevin sold us out to the cleaning crew.
Bargained with the cleaning crew.
Let's all right. Let's clean it up. Let's punch up the Heisman stats here. Heisman by the numbers. Here we go. CJ Stroud, 17 for 21, 281 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Caleb Williams playing late tonight against Oregon State. They are up just 17-14 with 1:13 left. So probably not a super explosive day there, but hey, only 13 points for Oregon State. I think that can only mean one thing. Alex Grinch for, I don't know, Congress or something. No one is better, Tony, at getting his name thrown around for literally any job in the world. Alex Grinch for NASA. He's gonna be the first man on Mars. Just ask
President Grinch.
He's a mean one. There we go. Jinx. All right, now Kevin can't talk. Stetson Bennett, 27-36, 272 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 pick. That sounds like that was a very, very flat performance for Georgia against Kent State today. I don't read anything into that. Bryce Young, 25-36, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, oh man, Bijan Robinson, goodness.
The fumble there at the end.
Texas is back, but not in the way they wanted to. Texas is back in the, Texas, baby, what is you doing?
Poor Texas.
Blake Corum, man.
He was tough.
Blake Corum is, I think the Maryland defense is not super fantastic, but still.
That was the best I think I've seen him in the limited opportunities that I got to see him. Just tremendous vision, ran hard, very big holes to run through those. So, good job by him.
All right, the USC game is final. Caleb Williams, 16 of 36, 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 carries for 27 yards. And that's Oregon State, which is, I think Oregon State is pretty good. Oregon State to me this year is a little bit like a good Northwestern team, where it's like they're going to kind of like pull you in and make you play their type of game, and that's not. You're not going to get the credit you deserve for a gross win over a non-brand name team.
I think CJ continues to. I think he's probably holding the top spot there. Bryce Young, has had some games a couple of times this year, at least once, and I don't know that CJ has really had that. CJ Stroud has had games for CJ Stroud, which is what tonight was, which is still 5 touchdowns, interception, 200 whatever yards, and having enough big plays to fill up Sports Center and keep the voters like, oh, he was fantastic.
All right, we got another one from Butch Jones. Do you think it's the
I think-
Arkansas State coach? He probably saw our show after Arkansas State.
Right. It's like, what did
Yeah.
I do wrong? Well, there's one way to find out.
Well, this is the super chat I can get behind for sure. I urge everyone still here to click the
Good.
like. These guys are up past their bedtimes. That is facts only, friends.
So true.
It is the least we could do in return. Yeah, it is. It is late. Yes, Kevin makes a great point, even though he's not supposed to be talking because he was jinxed earlier. It's science. He suggested you sign up for Buckeye Huddle. I would never suggest that. I would never impose that on anyone, even though I do truly believe it is a
It's
fantastic
not an
site,
imposition.
a wonderful community.
Yep.
Full of if you have enjoyed the pre and post game shows today, well, friends, guess what? It's all the folks from Buckeye Huddle. So we're all there. If you like listening to us talk football, and apparently you do, that's the place to do it.
Another big recruiting weekend. There's going to be plenty of recruiting updates at BuckeyeHuddle.com in the coming days as Alex Gleitman and Mark Givler touch base with the guys who are there and get their thoughts. And so definitely want to check out BuckeyeHuddle.com for those updates.
Yeah, and just to, we can touch a little bit on the recruiting piece of things. Keon Keeley was kind of the big name here tonight. He, 5-star defensive end. It's notable because this is his second trip. He's a kid out of Florida. It's his second trip to Columbus in the month of September. This one was on his own dime, so that's kind of intriguing. The other person who was kind of a notable person was Garrett Stover, who out of Big Walnut 2024. He's listed as an athlete, probably going to play somewhere on defense. Cousin of Cade Stover. And I'm watching Cade Stover catch 1 million passes, and it was like, I'm sure this isn't for Garrett Stover's benefit. But if it was, this is a lot like what it would look like.
You're saying they're going to try to convert him into like a tight end H-back type of thing?
I'm not saying no.
No, but Mark Givler, speaking of Mark, really likes Garrett Stover as a linebacker. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on in 2024. Kevin, any other questions out there for us?
There was a question, and I have like the later follow-up, but DK was wondering why the first team offense was out there as long as it was.
I think that's a Ryan Day thing.
Yeah.
He does that a lot where you're like, why are the starters still out there? And that's just what he does. And it's, wanting to get snaps for guys, wanting to get reps for guys. I don't even wonder why anymore because that's just him. That's what he does.
Yeah, I have a couple of games this year thought, why is CJ Stroud still in there? Why are the ones still in there? And now it's just kind of like they have had some weird games where they have not gotten as many snaps as you would think they would get in a typical game, and it's just been the defense can't get off the field, or someone's going to get hit with a punt, and that's going to, you're basically creating a turnover there or something like that, where you're losing snaps. So they want to get these starters, these reps, so they just stay in a little longer. But he could have put in the twos a drive or two earlier tonight, and it would have been, I don't think they would have lost anything much, but they want to get the ones the reps.
You got to worry about this quick strike Wisconsin offense. They can score in bunches quickly. As long as nobody tackles, Braylon Allen for 75 yards.
I think the thing I like best about the Wisconsin offense is how explosive it is.
Let's hear your Australian, Paul Chris.
The only thing I can say in Australian, mate, is that was a touchback of a punt. 2 points.
Too fast. That's too fast for Paul Chris.
That was just Australian.
That was just Australian. I'm not. No.
You can't do Australian, Paul Chris.
That's like mixing wing sauce.
Anything else over there, Kevin?
As we are decelerating into the final 6 minutes before we get thrown out of here.
Here's an interesting stat from ZZM. Every team Ohio State has played has lost the week after they played Ohio State.
Well, and it's funny because I've had somebody on the message board asking me since this summer to be like, hey, can you just go do some research about what are the team's records following Ohio State? I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. And it's something that I should eventually get to just to see like over the years what the record is following Ohio State. It's Yeah, it's not good this year.
No, and Toledo, I think, lost a close one. It might have been overtime. It was a very close one. Our buddy Mark Coons from Toledo was sitting next to me and mentioned that they had lost. It was like they were winning, and then they didn't win. Marvin from Wingman Ted. Did Marvin Harrison Jr. just get a bunch of turf pellets in his eyes? Hard to tell what he was treated for. I didn't see that.
I didn't see that, but I mean that does happen.
Yeah, some people were talking about it in the chat, so there might be something
Okay.
to it, but I did not see it. I want to have a moment of silence for Janet for the pregame show. Tom, you missed that. You were down doing your job, but we had a poster in here who was very confident that the injuries were just going to be too much for Ohio State to overcome, and that Ohio State was probably just a 9-win team.
Yeah, she got the crowd riled up there in the pregame, so it was nice. So yeah, Janet, Kevin just poured one out for you. Sorry the game went the way it did for you. I hope you can bounce back and join us next week.
Have they won more than 9 games yet this season?
Fair, and as I pointed out, you can win 9 games in a 12-win season, even a 15-win season. But I don't believe that's what she meant. But also, you're right, Tom. Ever the hater. Ohio State right now, they're just a 4-win team
during their 12-game season this year. Yes,
just a 4-win team right now. Kevin, anything else over there? Just a bunch of chat.
An open love letter to Janet going on right now in the chat.
Good for her.
Is the letter open or is there love? Because
it's
1:04 in the morning, so you never know at this hour with YouTube comments being what they are.
And spam bots. So anything else from this game, Tom, that struck you? Just looking again defensively, it would have been nice to see what they would have been able to close this defense out with. Not giving up that 75-yarder and really the drive before that as well. But yeah, I'm just really impressed that they were able to do this with the nickel, knowing that this is a big offensive line for Wisconsin, a big running back, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, and this is, let's not oversell this. This is not a great Wisconsin team. This is not, a Ron Dane vintage, run you over, incredible offensive line Wisconsin team. But they have handled all of the teams that they have played in the way that they, have really needed to be handled, essentially. They have made a not great Wisconsin team look like a bad Wisconsin team. And they made a, okay but not great Toledo team look like a bad Toledo team. And I think forever you're going to be hearing about the Notre Dame game and, Tony, did you hear that Notre Dame lost to Marshall? Not sure if you heard that, but they lost to Marshall. That's pretty bad. And Ohio State only beat them 21-10, Tony. I'm not sure if you heard that. But did I watch some of the Fox pregame show in the press box? It's impossible to say. We do have a super chat here from Jordan Kapler. Nothing funny or snarky to say. Just genuinely will appreciate all that you guys do. Beers on me the next time I'm in Columbus. I did. It is fun to get to see folks in the stands. I saw our buddy Tyler Shoemaker, one-time guest on the Morning Scoop, the Buckeyes This Morning podcast. Saw him in the stands, said hi to him. He and his son were sitting there watching the game.
Cool.
A lot of there. If you see me, say hi. I might even take a picture of you and send it to you after the game.
Look at you bribing people to acknowledge you. If you make me feel good about myself, I'll take a picture of you. Like, come on.
I rely on you for my self-worth, and obviously that's not working out. So. So apparently,
there was the 1 minute door opening.
The door just opened to the Green Mile. So they say we've got to go sit in a chair. So I don't know. I guess we got to leave.
Yeah, we'll go and they can go ahead and take care of cleaning up this visiting coaches booth here. So that will do it for us. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for the chat. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for watching the entire stream. All of you that have stayed with us. So that will do it for tonight. 52-21, Ohio State over Wisconsin. Big win, an impressive win. So that will do it for tonight. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you guys later.